settle this in your mind. You ready for this? You do everything right, people are going to hate you. You do everything wrong, people are going to hate you. It doesn't matter. 50% of the people are not going to like you. You have to do what you do anyway. You have to shine. You have to outlive your critics. And your adversarial voices will promote you far more than those that praise you. So you just have to be okay with the opinions of people and don't take, because I always say, if the opinions of people have the capacity to take you off course and you listen to them, then make darn sure they're paying your bills 10 years from today because you allowed them to steal that. And just shine, guys, shine.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York's.
Oh, wait a minute.
Middle Tennessee, it says here.
Yeah.
Sounds riveting. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Matt Wilson, the Mostly Marketing Podcast, as usual, for being the voice of the intro for this one. Check his podcast out. It's always a good one whenever he puts out an episode. He needs to do it a lot more. Check him out at Mostly Marketing with Matt Wilson. And again, this is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals all about their businesses, the highs, the lows, challenges, things they've overcome, how did they get started, meandering conversations that are real. That's what we like. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at MMTBP.com. Pick your poison and how you want to find and follow us and subscribe. You also find a link there if you want to be on the podcast, or if you know somebody who should be on the podcast, let them know. Typically, if they're from the area, it's a good thing, hence the name. And I am your host, Jim McCarthy, with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com and It'sYourShow.co, where we produce fine podcasts like this one and many others. One of them being the Try That in a Small Town podcast. Check those guys out, trythatinasmalltown.com. I'm really good at putting a lot of websites in the beginning of this thing. And today, I have a recurring guest that was on another iteration of the podcast a short time ago. He's always a great conversation, and the intention is generally just if you need some encouragement to be lifted up, this is the gentleman to do it. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Gabriel Sedlak. How you doing, buddy?
I am well. I love that meandering, real conversations. That's brilliant. That's exactly right.
We do, we go down rabbit holes and tangents and all that fun stuff.
Yep.
That's the way a podcast should be.
And thank you so much for asking me to come on. I mean, this is it's always an encouraging thing to be able to come and encourage people because at any given time, you know this, Jim, whoever you're talking to at whatever strata of life that you're talking to them at, from, or to, we're all dealing with stuff.
Always. It's always something.
And so, I firmly believe, and I think you do this very well, is by the time you've met someone, whether for 5 minutes, for 5 hours, you've left a deposit. And by the time they leave, they are greater, more lifted. There's something that has been transacted, and you both win. And I think that's how it should be.
And it's funny because you say that because it also does for something for this person who's able to do that.
Yeah.
It happened to me today. I went to a local drum shop. First time I had met the owner, had a great conversation with him, and immediately saw the potential and possibility of his store, and just shared a little bit of that with him. And it left him with such optimism. He's like, I just need let's talk more about this. How can I get more organized and stuff like that and think strategically as a business? And it's like, it's not a bad idea. And you got something here. Let's work together and make something out of it,
And he wasn't expecting you to come in and have that kind of deposit.
I was looking for a drum rack.
Wow. Well, and that's also because your radar's up. I think, the world now is so distracted. They say the enemy of 2024, 2025 is distraction.
Yeah.
And, you remember when you were a kid, how you would go on the hood of your car back before you would cave it in because it was not as cheap, but you get on the hood of your car and you would just stare at the stars, right? And you would just be in wonder, be in awe, or you noticed the grass was green, or you took a walk in the woods, or you just were amazed. Now, rarely do people stick their necks higher than level Rarely do they look up and get that perspective. So I believe we can go through life and completely miss it.
It's funny you say that because they're kind of doing that now anyway, because we've got this phenomenon of UAPs flying around and drones. So people are definitely watching the skies.
That is correct. It's They want to change the what is it? The computer neck. They want to change the computer neck.
Instead of looking down, we're constantly looking up for unidentified aerial projectiles. I guess they're not UFOs anymore. But it's funny because at the time of this recording, because I think we've got about 4 or 5 episodes in the can, so this will be coming out in January. It's right before Christmas. You got, God knows what the top news stories are going to be in the middle of January. It's always something. It really is.
Well, they have to keep something noisy, chaotic, and distractive.
The boogeyman.
Always. Yeah. You have to create an enemy. You have to create a problem, and that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've had a year, so to speak. It's been a year of reinvention, dare I say.
Well said. That was diplomatic. You're trying to protect me. That was sweet. Thank you.
How would you posture it if you had to? What would you call this year? I mean, it definitely was a reassessment of things, especially things that you consider to be important.
Yeah, I think this year is not only a new wine skin, but new wine. Everything that was has gone, and that which remains is built on the rock. Yeah. All of the noise and the stuff. Well, and I'll just tell you, because that was a great way to ask me the question without asking me.
Yeah.
The 15th, and we don't have to talk about this very long, but I'm saying my story because I want to encourage people that are trying to figure out how to start over again. Because at a macro or a micro level, people are always trying to start over again or improve.
Yeah.
16 years ago, my wife and I had the great pleasure of helping get off the ground a very, very successful company called Rodan and Fields. Mm-hmm. We changed thousands of lives, created a lot of wealth for a lot of people. It radically changed our lives on three continents. But as the story goes, the company made some decisions, and those decisions brought in some private equity and wrong people. And anyway, long and the short of it, they made decisions. They went a different direction. And on the 15th of July, we were expecting to launch a new product. Now, things had already gone like this, had already begun to progress downward because the company restructured how everybody was paid, change this, change that, change this. And so, when something is declining quickly, you have two choices. The first sign that something is going down, you don't want to believe it, so you hang on tighter and you believe it's going to get better, so you just work harder, right? And that's all too often what people do. What we should do is, when there are very, very strong signals that no longer are things going to be the way they are, you almost have to get extraordinarily resolute and brave and say, I'm going to go ahead and pivot now. Didn't do that.
Yeah.
Hung in there. So as it's progressively falling, come to find out the company was in massive, massive amounts of debt, insanity levels of debt. And there was lots of infusements that came. And so we didn't know this, thinking we were going to launch a product. Everybody was excited. And in a 5-minute Zoom call, they eliminated the business model, and we had no more income. Boom. So you go from already a progressive decline to no income. Now, how do you respond? How do you respond at a time like that, right?
Way when you told me the stories, just person to person, the way you responded was how I read it. Nothing but with world class.
Thank you.
Because that was one of those things that, a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh. The company in that situation, because in that situation, you're more of an intrapreneur than an entrepreneur, because you're working within a construct that you have no real control over.
You don't have control.
Yeah. Right. So you're helping them, you help them build the company, you branded it over the years. A lot of people built livings and incomes off of it significantly.
Massive, yes.
And, the company at the end of the day, it's like anybody on YouTube who's got a channel and they build up a significant audience, YouTube's got the whim. At a moment's notice, they can just turn off your income.
They could sneeze the wrong way. You say the wrong thing.
Exactly.
There's the online police, depending on the flavor of how the society is demonizing something or, sanctifying something at the current moment. Yeah, you could have your legs knocked out from under you in a flash. So yeah, you're right, Jim. And thank you for the kind statement. I handled it classy, and I'm thankful that
a lot more patience than I would have.
Well, and
put it that way.
Well, and I have to say this, when life comes, people deal with divorces. They deal with, they work for a company for 30 years, and suddenly one day they come to work and they meet them at the door and say, "Listen, I'm going to need you to go ahead and pack your stuff."
Yeah.
Right? Everybody deals with stuff like this all the time. But the way we were able to stay grounded, and I have to deflect where the honor goes, and it has to be to what God's done, because we would just, we were already in the discipline of our lives of being in the Word every day, waking up very early, being in our Bible study, and just, having a coffee and having quiet time. And it grounds your life, it grounds your heart, it grounds your mind, and you know where your source is, who is your provider, that your identity is not in what you do or your circumstances. And the key is how do you stay sane if things do come sideways? So, and we now, of course, look back at it, and it's been just since July. We're actually incredibly thankful, because it's like the Band-Aid, let's just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and you guys can go do something else. Because we needed to a long time ago. And we knew that. Yeah. We knew we should have gone a long time ago. Anyway, I'll make it quick and we'll talk about other things. But I got quiet. So the news happens. Hey, the company's, no longer going to have this business model. We're going to go a different direction. Just know you matter.
Thanks for all you've done.
Yeah.
Because they went completely retail, right?
They went, basically, people can just get it straight from the company, and they
business to
eliminated
consumer.
the business model.
Yeah.
And so, and there was a lot of reasons. They said, well, the buying habits of the population is different. Influencers, or whatever. Look, companies always have to justify their decisions. It's not, I didn't own the company, so I couldn't make the decision.
Right.
Well, anyway, so the surprise hit us, and Holly and I are sitting as my wife. So Holly and I are listening to this. We see the president come up. It looks like somebody kicked him in the face, because you could just see it in his eyes. He said a few things. Just know you matter. Legal counsel gets on, says a few things.
Mm-hmm.
And boink, zooms over.
Yeah.
My phone went nuclear. And it went nuclear because people are panicking. People were freaking out. They didn't know what to do. Like, oh my gosh, we've built for 16 years is gone, or 15 years, or 14, or 10, or 5, or however long they were with us. And I spent that first week, because as soon as we heard the news, Holly and I looked at each other and we laughed, like genuine laugh, not nervous fear laugh, because we knew immediately, wow, well, that chapter's closed. There was a bit of relief, and we're like, you know what? We can't wait to see what's next. But the key at that point is we had to get very quiet, not react. Within minutes, I'm having people hit me up with opportunities. I'm being offered, stacks of, come to this company, come to that company, come to this one, come to Europe, come to this country, come to that country, come to Utah, come to this. People were calling me. One particular guy called me from his private jet and was going to talk to me about it. And I knew, because I heard that the man was going to call me, because if I had jumped into that particular company, it would have basically been a green light, and I would have helped usher in a multitude of others. And of course, that was, I guess, what they would want. But I knew that I couldn't go in and compromise, receive payoffs, any deals, any backroom deals, nothing, would not. And my wife and I said, we will lose it all before we will compromise. We will start over again. If it meant moving into a 1-bedroom apartment and starting over, and we would joke and say, like, move your mom in and bring her crazy cat with her, we're going to do it, because there is a point in life where you can't sell your birthright out for a cup of soup. You can't trade. It takes a long time to build a reputation. It takes about 12 seconds to destroy it. And so we just got still, got quiet, encouraged the people, got still. Thank you for the offer. Thank you for the offer. Thank you for the offer. No, thank you. I would delete messages because I didn't even want to hear words. And so at the end of the week, Had a good cry because all the emotion hit. And I said, I just need to get in the car and drive because 16 years, lives, and we raised our kids in the business and we traveled and just helped people in our stories. And you go, that is gone. Oh, and so the emotion finally hit. Had a good about 30-mile drive, and I cried a bit. I mean, genuinely, it hit me hard, and I was just kind of crying out to God, like, what do we do next? Came home, pulled in the driveway, sat there, rolled the windows down in my truck, had my head back, and just had to sit there. So the kids drive up in the car next to me, and they see me kind of lean back, slumped over in the car, and they're like, "Are you okay, Dad?" And I'm like, I'm okay. I said, I'm just laying all that was on the altar, and I'm watching to see if it's wiggling, because if it is, I'm going to stab it again. I'm going to make sure this thing is so dead that I'm not getting off. I'm not going to, and that's what I said. I will not take my left foot out of my truck and place it on the ground with one iota of this thing still alive. I'm ready for something new. Finally, I felt it lift. I said, okay, I'm done. Made sure it wasn't wiggling because I was ready just to stab it. And felt the release, rolled the windows up, took a big breath, like literally felt it come off of me, put my foot in the ground, walked in the house. Holly had been in bed. She was crying too. It came to a head. When you're one, it's interesting how we're having parallel experiences. She's in bed and I'm driving. And walk in the house, look at her. She looks at me. We just smiled, sat in the chair in the bedroom. And she said, "Babe, we can do it again." I said, "We can do it again. You're right." And it was just like a sigh of relief that we both knew this is going to be the best year of our lives. Within 2 minutes, Jim, 2 minutes, my phone, I get a text, bzz, friend of mine that I was in business with them 18 years earlier. And then bzz, Holly's phone rings. And he said, "Call me." It's my buddy, Jared Burnett. I'm like, I don't want to talk to Jared. I don't want to talk to anybody right now. And so I picked up the phone, called him. And as soon as he answered the phone, I felt like a supernatural peace hit me, just like this peace. And I'll end the story with this. That 2-hour conversation turned into 2 days later, us being in Dallas, Texas, at a new company. We ended up enrolling and joining that company. And from then into now, we've probably had 1,300 people through the grapevine have come and followed us. I had some people that were calling me on the way there that said, "We trust you. We love you. We know your marriage. We know your walk. We know your example. We know you're not going to do this, that, or this or that. We're trusting you. We're coming. Where are you?" I said, "Well, we're heading to Dallas. I don't know enough yet, but I think it's going to be the deal." They said, "We're coming." And I had friends come in and just fly in just to be there and joined us. So we are, and we'll stop with this, so excited, so thankful. It's so fresh, new wineskin, new wine, new company, whole new category. And now we get to change lives all over again in a far more redemptive way, because it's almost as though that 16 years was the trying of the steel. For such a time as this, we've been prepared, and we know that this is going to be incredible. And I got to say this real quick to your listeners. I had really hard questions. If the company wasn't debt-free, I'm out. If the company's new or a few years old, I'm out. You're not battle tested, I'm out. If your owner hasn't been in the field and built like we have, I'm out. If your stuff isn't consumable and doesn't work and hold the test of time and hold water without me, I'm out. It doesn't need to be the greatest thing because I'm in. It better hold water so I can share all those things. And then there was all kinds of fiscal questions, and this went on for about 15 hours over 3 days in the boardroom in Plano. And so we haven't looked back. So you guys, don't be afraid to do something new. Don't be afraid to cut the cord. There's nothing noble about going down with the ship. Nothing. If we had listened earlier, we would have saved ourselves a tremendous amount of pain. But you just believe in a relationship, in a business, in life. It's just going to get better. I can change them. I know it's going to get better. I'll just work harder. I'll try harder. Well, even though we're having to liquidate and throw the tea off the ship, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. We have to be discerning enough to see the signs. And so we're pumped.
Does your garage door sound like this? If it does, it's screaming for help. Call Incredible Doors, 931-348-DOOR. We're making garage doors in Murray and Williamson counties work better, sound better, and, well, spring better. We just make them incredible again. Incredible Doors in Spring Hill. When your door's springs break, you need remote reconnections, opener installation, or just about anything to do with your garage door, go to IncredibleDoors.com or call 931-348-DOOR. Follow us on Facebook for specials on maintenance visits, key pass, and other items. 931-348-DOOR.
Before everything happened, though, in July,
Yeah.
how long, like, is everyone, you get a gut feeling about this stuff.
Oh, for a few years.
Yeah, you tend to, like, ignore it, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's when I kind of, you know, whenever somebody goes through that where all of a sudden something ends and a way of life ends. For example, I was in the car business and I got into another business that my gut told me it's something that's a means to get me to the next thing. And
Right.
I knew that even though I wanted to apply myself and make the best out of it, it just, you know, I showed up one March morning, March 1st, and it was my last day at that job. But it was also, I realized, the first day of what my full-time entrepreneurial journey would look like.
Mm.
But it still didn't neglect or negate the fact that you're a dad, you're a primary breadwinner, a husband, you know, you're putting all the food on the table. And it's like, we've got one paycheck to go until we're insolvent. We've got nothing. And it was, I remember reading to my daughter, she was 4 at the time, for bedtime, and thinking to myself, I'm doing her a disservice because I'm not working hard enough. What am I doing reading to her? I need to be figuring out how to make our next, you know, car payment, mortgage
Even at that
payment.
moment, you were stuck in that pressure.
And
Wow.
the what to do next factor was so paralyzing. Like, I knew what to do, but it was so overwhelming. Like, okay, how do I sum up everything that I do? Do I make it a Jim McCarthy thing? Do I make it a JMVO thing? I got to get a website going. What's on all the things? See, I was like, just the pressure. All I remember was the day after everything happened. You could still find this video. It's up on my YouTube. I called it Daily Entrepreneur. It was a very short-lived series that was inspired by Gary Vee.
Short-lived.
Very short-lived. I think I made it 6 or 7 episodes. Right. It was just, you know, too much. I was like, okay, this is too much work. I sat in a McDonald's parking lot before I met with what would become my next business partner, and just was real. You know, told people what would happen, what had happened, what I'm planning on doing, how I plan on moving forward. Here's what I can do. If there's anything that I do that can help you, let me know. So I put that out on YouTube, on LinkedIn, all the socials. And, you know, wouldn't you believe I had a couple people reach out, and that video paved the way for the next month and a half, 2 months. So got a video production gig that paid our mortgage. Then the next thing paid the car payment. So all these little chunks were happening. But it still wasn't, you know, I would literally come up to my wife. Her parents came in for a visit. They were kind of looking at me like, so you getting another job or what are we doing here? You know, you have that kind of pressure, but we were heading out to dinner with them and I had just gotten an order and I said, hey, we've got the next month mortgage covered. She's like, okay. And literally within the next couple of days, we got the next month covered. The next couple of days, got the next 2 months covered. So things just kept on rolling and rolling and rolling, you know, which sometimes can lead you to a false positive as well. You know, as far as a false positive attitude, like I should have done this a long time ago. What was I thinking? You know, little did I know it was the beginning of a journey of discovery and learning what to do and what not to do. And, you know, same thing with you. But I mean, was there anything like that of that? I mean, of course you got to have that panic. You know?
Well, two things. Well, first of all, the one thing that we didn't do, which is critical, is Holly and I didn't beat each other up. We didn't blame each other. That's it. That's critical. And for you guys watching, you know, the worst thing you can do, especially if you're married, is if something happens, say, the classics, I didn't sign up for this,
Right.
I wasn't prepared for this. When are you going to do something? I can't believe you led me into this, or I told you I saw this ahead of time. Why didn't you listen to me? All of the nonsense that everybody likes to throw out quickly. We didn't do any of that. We were just still and quiet and in agreement. The other part of it was the first. Well, I'll tell you this: the first sign that things should have changed was when one day, a few years before that, another Zoom happened. And the Zoom happened at that point when it was a 5-minute phone call, and suddenly a whole dimension of how we're paid was eliminated.
Yeah.
And at that point, it represented for us, it was about $38,000 a month,
Yeah.
38 to $40,000 a month. It was in 5 minutes vaporized off our monthly check.
Yeah.
And that destroys people. And so I remember Holly and I were looking at each other, and she goes, "You're not freaking out?" She went like 10 shades of green, and we're just, like, what are we going to do? And you start to stack up everything. And I didn't react. I was actually quiet. And then and again, being in the Word, being grounded, I have to say this because people can't survive in life unless they're anchored onto something that, there's nothing like being in the Word, just having your mind. Because what does the Scripture say? It says the renewing of the mind comes by the washing of the water of the Word. We got to get a little theological here because, self-help, I think I can, trying real hard, putting more in this basket than this basket to, make sure that you're teeter-tottering the seesaw. That's not the way to do it. You have to have your mind renewed, and it comes from that. And so when that happened, I heard it as loud as I'm sitting here talking to you, because I felt myself starting to get angry, and I felt it hard. The only reason you're upset is because you gave them that much power. And I'm not mad at the company. They own the company. Like right now on this podcast, I'm not mad. I'm not bitter.
Right.
I didn't own it. But what I should have done is been far more intelligent. Because, for instance, if you have a one-legged table, you have to hold it up with both hands. If you have a two-legged table, you have to hold it with both hands or lean it against a wall. If you have a three-legged table, it'll stand, but if you hit it the wrong way, it'll topple. Four-legged table, pretty solid. You could pretty much put a lot of weight on it. 5 legs, 6 legs, 7 legs, right?
Yeah.
You get 10 legs, great. Knock out 6 of the legs, the table ain't going anywhere.
No.
And so the thing is when you put all of your eggs into one basket and gave a company or an entity or a person or whatever that much power, that only belongs to God. It doesn't belong to a company, an entity. You can't hang your life, your mortgage, your life, where your kids go to school, everything you do and everything hinged on the guarantee that a company will take care of you forever. And so people say, I don't have any faith, or I have a hard time with faith. I'm like, you have more faith than most anybody I've ever seen. They said, why do you say that? I said, because you've hung your entire life on that company taking care of your family, and you have hinged everything on it, and you believe it's never going to change.
They're not even aware of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you get blinded by this stuff. So I should have, at that point, said, and we did. We started making decisions to diversify and do things beautifully. So
What else are you doing?
Oh, gosh.
As far as diversification.
yeah, well, I mean, we have YouTube. Well, here is the mistake I made that made it more difficult than it should have. And I will also want to talk to your viewers about this. My car tag, right? I'm going to put on a new car. I don't know what car yet, but it's ROAR, ROARRRR, right? I got it in Georgia years ago. My wife said, you should put ROAR, because I had a Ford Raptor back in 2010 when they first came out. Any truck guys, the 6.2 original swing door Ford Raptor. Anyway, I had that, and the reason, it wasn't because the truck was noisy and brawly. It was because what it represented to me is that God has a voice. When is the last time anybody's ever heard you roar? Most people are quiet, lead quiet lives of desperation. They're afraid to speak. They're afraid to be public. They're afraid of ridicule. They're afraid of opposition. They're afraid of the opinions of people. Nobody knows what they think, what's in their heart, what creativity they have, nothing. And so when people say, oh, I like your tag, roar, I said, yeah, when's the last time somebody's heard your voice? What has God called you to do that you're a toothless lion locked in a cage? You ever been to the zoo? And you go to the zoo and you watch these lions, these magnificent animals, and you'll see them right at the fencing. There's usually about a foot deep trench, right? Because all they do is pace pace, pace, pace. Spirit's broken. So one of the things we were doing is a lot of stuff like on Facebook pages and private pages and behind the scenes and private groups and and what was happening is the amplification of doing coaching, business training, YouTube strategy, all that kind of stuff. We were just within the industry, without the industry. I've had people from all kinds of business disciplines ask me for help that make fortunes all the way through over the years. And we were just very quiet. So nobody knew us. Nobody knew us, Jim. And so I realized that the lack of amplification, the lack of visibility, nobody knew me because I was in a hole.
Yeah.
And so we decided at that point, when that first whack of the income happened, to get far more public. I wrote a book that year. That's been wildly successful in its own right, within the realm that it is. We started a YouTube channel. We started creating content and started doing everything public. And that we just hit. Now, a lot of folks may not be impressed with this, but it's impressive to me. We just hit 1 million views on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's been monetized for a while.
Congrats.
And, just getting the content out there and not being afraid. I think many people, I know I'm saying a lot, but I also, again, I keep saying your viewers, because people need to hear this. This conversation, Jim, will change lives if they hear it.
I think I just hit like 100. So
100 what?
Views. I'm being facetious.
Okay. I was
supposed to be funny.
That is not true. That is not true. But people have got to settle this in your mind. You ready for this? You do everything right, people are going to hate you. You do everything wrong, people are going to hate you. It doesn't matter. 50% of the people are not going to like you. You have to do what you do anyway. You have to shine. You have to outlive your critics. And your adversarial voices will promote you far more than those that praise you. So you just have to be okay with the opinions of people, and don't take, because I always say, if the opinions of people have the capacity to take you off course and you listen to them, then make darn sure they're paying your bills 10 years from today, because you allowed them to steal that. And just shine, guys, shine.
Well, you're going to have, people that comment and are haters, and it's always a fun excursion to go and investigate who it's coming from. That make, negative comments.
Yeah, armchair quarterback, one subscriber.
Right.
It's like, this is not my real name, 64.
No videos. Yeah.
Right.
Just, people that are angry about life, and, it's, and it's one of those things that, like, again, the podcast we talked about at the top of the show, the Try That in a Small Town podcast, we make light of those people, and we almost make fun of ourselves. Not me, but the hosts. One of them called out one of the hosts and said, Neil is terrible. And he kind of owned it. He's like, I'm terrible, Neil. And
that's it.
What does that do? It makes you endeared to them.
Agree with thine adversary quickly.
Yeah.
There's something to it. You say, you know what? Maybe there's something to that. And just
make a sale, make a friend.
You know what? Like the stuff I've heard just on my videos or whatever we've done over the years, right? Is I hate this guy. He's a clown. He's this, he's that. That was 30 minutes of pure torture. I can never get that time back in my life. You're a liar. This didn't happen. Or they're trying to fact check you with all of this neurotic stuff, and they're also misinformed. And, you just, at first I went, wow, people have opinions. And then I started laughing at it. And now no matter how, and some of the stuff is just filthy. You can tell there's some just filthy, dark, gross, bound up people out there. Yeah. And when they say stuff, I don't even think about it anymore, Jim. Don't even think about it. Be so busy shining that you don't even pay attention to the noise.
Or, again, even have the humanity to kind of lift them up. Because that's what they're right. Screaming out for that.
That's why they're doing it, right?
I've put out controversial topics before, and a lot of people call you out on it. And it's like, look, I'm not trying to, look at what I said in the context of how I'm saying it and the before and after and where it sits in terms of the concept of what we're talking about. But, somebody will attack it's the old guy. Yeah, you got me. I guess I'm old. Whatever.
And there it is.
It's comment feng shui, or Tai Chi, rather. It's absorbing the blow and letting it pass and repackaging it and firing it back.
That was
in
good.
a more positive
hopefully
way.
you filmed your movements.
My movements were very fluid.
That was good.
That's
exactly what it is. But also at the same time, don't spend a lot of time trying to answer your critics. They are not answerable. Because even if you answer the question satisfactorily, it doesn't matter anyway. Because it's not about being right. They just want to talk. So there's just a crazy world out there. And I'll tell you this is really important. Again, for the people watching, the most offensive thing, let me give you two examples. In church, and I say that in a general sense, in the church, when you see a victorious believer walking in power, living victoriously, the Bible promises are active and alive in their lives, they're shining, that is not embraced.
Yeah.
Because there's a great verse that says, because of doctrines of devils and traditions of men, the word of God is made of none effect. Isn't it interesting? God has this offer out there, the way life can be, if you attach on to the promises and what was already paid for. And yet, because of doctrinal beliefs, denominational concepts, believe what your daddy did, where you went to church, what you think experiences, superimposing life on things and then creating doctrine out of it, traditions of men and doctrines of devils, which is even blatant twists of Scripture, make all of that of none effect. So you go through life with all these promises, but because of your belief system not being renewed, you never get it. And so you just have to know that victorious living within the church world, victorious living in life, if you are, like if I sat here on this podcast and I said, Jim, life really sucks right now. I'm going through this, going through that, lost this, lost that. Yeah, there she goes, there it goes, that went away, this is gone. There is people, I don't want to say love it, but that stuff really gathers, I would say, like Job's friends around the campfire. People love to show up and talk about that. But if you're on here talking about victory and dominating and outliving your critics and pivoting and shining and just blasting through contrary circumstances, people don't know what to do that. Some love it and say, thank God, you gave me an example to, wow, you encouraged me. Finally, somebody's doing something. And then all others will look at that and go, hold on a minute, you're shining. It's making me look at myself. I don't like looking at myself. I hate you even more.
I feel inadequate.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. There's a lot of that goes on. We've talked about the influencer culture, business influencers, and coaches coaching coaches, as you.
Or how about this? Here's a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It costs $3. But by the time I put it over here, it's $3,500. Because now what I've done is I've taken the cup of coffee, now I've put it into a download, now I've added it to a stretched out 6-week program, and now I've created a high and a low level offer. And then from there, I've created a Facebook group and an accountability group and a weekly group. And then you're going to come to the inner circle and you're going to get the VIP inner circle. Now it's $3,500, but over here it was $8.
Yeah.
And I'm not, look, buy what you want, but I have spent almost 150 grand on stuff like that. And I just, I realized that a lot of the time, and there's all this, like the niche crowd, right? This gets people upset. The niche people usually are talking niche. A lot of the time we need to find who's your audience, who's your niche. And I appreciate the psychology of it.
Yeah. But
the most successful people in business and life, many times the people training that are the ones that are making the most money from that. And I don't want to be mean, but I have just seen very few people. You don't want to spend your whole life looking at humanity as a sale. Let's just put it that way.
And there are people that are very, very transactional that way, and
everything is a sale. It's so gross. They can do it if they want, but I can't.
But, for the people that are listening, you have an amazing mindset when it came to a year of massive shift, right? A lot of people, you did have like a private, seemingly very minute period of mourning, but I think I
gave it a few days.
But I think your mourning periods probably started at that point when a majority of your income disappeared. You saw the writing on the wall.
I did.
And it wasn't.
I have to be honest about that. I did.
It wasn't, but at our age.
You're baked in the cookie. Where do you go? What do you do? How do you shift? It's going to get better. We can just work harder. We can try harder. It's going to change. They're not going to do that. I just know it's going to get better. And you convince yourself of this.
Well, because of what else you going to do,
And if we
that's
jumped
the
ship,
other
it would have
aspect of it.
created a huge fallout because of the following we had.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was one of those things that unless you have something to jump ship to, you had your back up against the wall, which gave you no choice but to take your time. At least you had the ability to kind of take your time with it. You know what I mean? And like in my case, I was at a different portion of my life. I was just turned 40. Which I think is a massive shift in a lot of people's lives, and they just don't realize it. I think a lot of big shifts in people's lives, and your kids are here. I'll tell you this right now. You guys are postured, I think, best in probably the first time in many, many decades of human generation to accept what your 20s to 40s will be. I think the 20 to 40 year age range for most people, because of what was been conditioned in us with, you got to go to college, you got to find a good job, something that's safe, that's going to, all those little buzzwords that our parents cling to was because of their previous generation being pounded into them. College gave you an edge, did this, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. For the first time in history, I think everybody's kind of leaning towards the 20-year-olds going, look, figure out you, man. Figure out why God put you on this earth. Being self-aware is very important. I tell my kids that all the time. I want you to know who you are. Be self-aware and pursue that. You'll figure out a way to make it work. I don't want you to be lazy. I don't want you to just kind of be passively look at it. Wake up on fire for something and go for it. Not like live your passion or anything like that. What's your purpose? Your purpose is different than what you're passionate about sometimes. Find what the purpose is, and you may not find it for a while. Well, and it's okay.
Well, a lot of the time what you're passionate about is the limited sphere of what you've seen or experienced.
Right.
If you've only tasted vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry, I love strawberry, and you're just dead set on it, but you've never tasted the other of the 31 flavors, right? And so many times your passion is limited to your worldview or your vantage point, what you're able to actually see or how far out you can see. And so I love the grace that, well, these guys are, we push them, but we, at the same time, they have lots of grace to discover that because they can't live under our umbrella. But I will say that almost 16 and 19 to be able to be as entrepreneurial as they are already at their level is a gift.
Yeah.
That would terrified a generation ago.
Yeah.
What they do innately.
And again, cautiously peppering that with entrepreneurial efforts and talents, still got to have business acumen, still got to have scalability. Because as anybody knows, in a trade job, electrician, plumber, HVAC, you can branch off of a company and start your own thing. But are you owning a job or an actual company? And that's a tough thing. For what I do with the voiceover, I could be the voice and I can hire people to help produce it, but dude, at the end of the day, I'm needed. I can't walk away from this thing if it's based on me.
Do you want to do more voiceovers?
Oh, of course. I'd like to.
Everybody right now, I'm serious. Give me a break. And you guys will all attest to this. How many people on planet Earth sound as good as Jim, have the experience that he has, are as well-rounded as he is? I mean, he could be dead asleep. He would be doing a voiceover for you. You could elbow him. He would just pop up and do it on the first take, and it would be perfect. Hire this man.
You're not wrong.
Hire this man. Listen, buddy, we're going to do some fun things together.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. I'll say it again.
One of the things that you and I talked about this the last time we were all together was, my superpower and my purpose for being on this earth at this particular time is my expertise in podcasting and broadcast radio, mass media, and applying that kind of knowledge and expertise to the podcast world and encouraging other people in radio. I mean, I do that probably at least once a month because I'm finding out, it just happened yesterday, found out a good friend of mine in the radio business just got let go. And it's like someone needs to, because the people in radio are still insulated by that business. And they need that outside voice saying, look, buddy, you're not valueless. Your skills still matter. Even if radio, the industry doesn't see it as valuable, you are valuable in the podcast world and digital media and in understanding promoting and the things we did in that business. It is needed in this new world.
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine, known him forever, never, even before I got married. He's about to start his own company.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a roofing. He's a contractor. He's a genius contractor down there in Florida, Tampa area, just genius. And Ken, if you're watching, everybody needs to use you. You're the best. But anyway, they're talking about doing some things for themselves. And I said, well, you know what? You guys are actually not contractors and you're not roofers. I said, you're actually a media company. I said, if you are trying to get market share through price and convenience, I'm your local guy. Here's my resume. Here's my price point. I've been doing this forever. Well, my guy can do it for $7 and you're saying $8. I mean, it's tit for tat.
Yeah.
But if you are a personality, if you are a voice of reason, if you are a strategist, an encourager, you're a real person, the silver screen effect of being online, amplification. I said, you're in the media business. So everything you would normally do, just put a stinking camera on it and pump it out through at least 5 of the social media networks like clockwork. And you'll get elevated to a place where you'll be the expert. You'll be able to demand even better pricing. You'll be able to then maybe do symposiums, train on the whole industry. And he kind of went, wow.
They have no idea.
That is
until it's put to
a whole nother planet. What did you do? And so we got to talk for about 2 hours about that. And I just encourage them. So I would say that to you guys, whatever you do, you are not, it's not what you do. If you're if you're automotive sales, or you're in the music business, or you're into, roofing and contracting, or you're a nurse, or you're a teacher, you are not that. You see, what you do, I tell nurses and teachers this often because a lot of coaches, nurses and teachers end up leaning towards the kind of business model we have pretty often, or business people that understand leverage. But I'll say, are you a nurse by trade or are you a nurse by gifting? And they'll say,
big difference.
Wow. I said, so are you a nurse because you help in nursing with people, or are you a nurse because it's where your heart leans to take people and caretake, protect, serve, love? Oh, I'm a nurse by gifting. Exactly. So you can take that gift and put it into something exponentially bigger that makes exponentially amounts of more money, and you can serve people in a much bigger way than in the confines of the hospital. Teachers. I love teaching. I just love teaching. Great. Are you a teacher by trade or are you a teacher by gifting?
Yeah.
Oh, but I love the kids. I understand that. But think about how many kids you could help if you were a teacher by gifting and you were amplified through some type of a media, what you could do at scale to help people, and you would make far more and you'd be far more valuable. So I always go there with people because they get so stuck in what they do and that's their identity. I'm like, no, is it a trade or a gifting? And then the next thing is, let's amplify you because the world needs to see what you do. Put a stinking camera on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a lot of people have their own self-limiting beliefs.
Yep.
Well, I need to get this degree, or I need to do. No, if you're a teacher and you have the heart of a teacher, which is kind of what you're saying,
That's what I'm saying.
then go teach.
But
Go
you
teach
can,
something.
But you can teach at large rather than teach behind a desk.
I have a buddy of mine who I don't think he has his master's. I'm pretty sure he's got his bachelor's. But he's older. He's a little bit older than me, so he's of the generation that, you're just going to college. Why? No.
What I was told.
Gives you an edge.
Right. That's what you do.
He teaches teachers. That's his job. That was his big thing, is that, he's more of a culture creator and expert in helping hire, mid-level to high-level administrators in a school create a culture that is healthy for students, starting from the top down, which means you have to have a healthy culture for your administrative assistants and mid-level executive leadership on down to the teachers, on down to the custodian. It's got to be a healthy culture, so that filters to the kids. That's what he speaks on. He's teaching teachers who have master's degrees to teach, and he doesn't have one.
The highest paid people on planet Earth are going to be the ones in the future. You're already starting to see it, that have the capacity to use language to affect and infect somebody at such a level of change that they break all of these limits, however you would want to label them. the person that can speak to the heart. I've made millions of dollars doing that.
Yeah. But it comes from an integrous and generous.
Correct.
And
I say millions, I mean, like, big deal. I mean, 1 million isn't enough anymore, folks. Let's get real. You need multiple millions. And even the multiple millions ain't enough. You need multiple tens of millions. And even that's not enough, because everything has changed now.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't going to hit that ever.
Well, the average life, somebody works 30 years, net $1.4 million in a lifetime. Right. So you need at least $1.4 million to get your life back.
So being that we're encouraging people and lifting them up.
Yes.
Here's the thing is that, when you're in a job and you've been told all your life that, get a good job, make sure it's safe. Mm-hmm. Some of the safest things never played out all that well. You weren't really put on the earth to, and here's the thing, that the conundrum that comes into it is that if everybody has an entrepreneurial bent, you still need worker bees.
Of course.
And there are people that are okay doing that.
And there are, and you never knock, if somebody is genuinely happy being at whatever level they are, that's fantastic. I just want to make sure when I speak to them that they're not programmed and on the inside, they actually know that God's called them to do much greater things. Yeah. And I'm not saying, I've even heard it across all kinds of realms that, some people are just sheep. I have heard that from very strong authority positions at some level from lots of people. And I don't believe that. I don't believe anybody was created to be a sheep, just put their head down and chew uncut or bite or graze or just be led around by a cane. I think that everybody has a greatness in them. The problem is you take that little boy, that little girl that played in the sandbox and had toys and put on the cape and could do the impossible and dreamt and woke up wearing like Hudson used to go around the house with a cape on, a shield, always some kind of a weapon in his hand, dinosaur feet, and he was invincible.
He is so happy you're telling people that right now. He's like, I'm good with it.
And but he was invincible. You have to learn to settle. You have to learn to be afraid. You have to learn all these social poisons that are out there. You have to learn to settle. You have to learn to give up. You have to be. It goes back to the elephant. The elephant tries. Eventually they take the chain off and the elephant just doesn't move anymore because they've been programmed. Fleas, same thing. Yeah. They'll hit, and I would never compare people to this. I'm just saying they'll hit their heads on the jar, take the jar lid off. They don't jump any higher than the lid.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable how people are programmed through circumstances. So that's the whole thing is many times, and I believe this, Jim, the reason you must be wildly successful, and you are in many, many respects. The reason I must be wildly successful and then use that success to speak more life and hope is because we may be the only person that lives that type of freedom, and that gives somebody the ability to anchor on to your life and go, you know what? Because of your example, my life has changed.
Yeah.
And when I hear stuff like that and people come up to us, you don't know something, Gabriel, but years ago we started following you and got on your trainings and and then suddenly, our whole family changed. And I just want you to know because of this and this and this, we are not the same. And we've gone on to do stratospheric things. And you just go, from that conversation back then, they said, yeah, we had never seen it. But when you said it, something happened to us and our whole trajectory changed. Yeah. That's why we have to be successful and then be loud about it.
Being loud about it, you ever hear the whole term?
Not boisterous. Amplified, I should say. Better word.
Lions, not sheep. You ever hear that phrase? Mm-hmm. I was always conflicted about that because typically the guys that are saying that are believers. And it's like, Jesus is the shepherd, which makes us the sheep. How do we reconcile that? You're telling me, and I get what you're saying because
greatness has been put inside of you. You're not supposed to just graze quietly. Correct.
Right. But in a way, it's kind of like you got to rely on God as well. I mean, we've had quite a tumultuous past 2 years. 2022 was one for the books. I think I shared that with you.
And everything kind of hit its peak of nasty.
Yeah. But it was things that needed to happen, and it was a year of challenge. But I never once had like that gut-wrenching fear or worry that I remember having as a kid of the uncertainty, or even as a teenager in my 20s or 30s. I just knew it would be okay. Everything's going to work out, which I don't know if that made me a sheep or it also helped that I knew I was right.
Well, there was a funny joke that was, you probably heard it. They were talking about the Amish, and they were talking about this. This had to do with when COVID was at its heightened awareness, and everybody was talking about it in every sentence. And they were saying it's astonishing. If you look within the Amish communities, it's almost non-existent. And the gentleman said, "Well, they don't have televisions."
Yeah.
And I guess I say that to say that, what you listen to, what goes in your eyes, what goes into your heart, and then what comes out of your mouth, you end up walking it.
You totally do.
Yeah. As a man thinks in his
marinate your
heart, so
mind.
is he. Be it so according to your faith. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's just on and on and on.
It is.
Yeah, and you end up walking out like your life is paved by your words.
Well, not also the fact that the Amish are also immersing themselves in what humans were probably meant to do.
Yeah, the agrarian life
Right.
and having fulfillment, it bolsters them in so many different areas. But I thought it was funny because you really could take a lot out of that. They didn't have a television. Why? Because they're not allowing themselves to be programmed.
Right.
And all of us are being programmed by something all the time.
And there's a lot of power that the mind holds over the body.
Yep.
A lot of people, friends of mine that they just dove what's happening in the news.
Yeah.
And so you do realize that this is not making you healthier physically.
Whatever side of the tracks they were watching was consuming them.
Right. It was all encompassing because it was panic, panic, panic. You had the world telling them that this is a major problem and you're at risk. And, you heard so many, anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, maskers, vaxxer, all the people going. I saw it from a 50,000-foot view. I'm like, this is just one more thing to be divided over.
Well, now
That's all it is.
Now you're seeing all the congressional hearings, and this is the last thing we'll say about it, and all the words that, now Fauci and all the stuff. People are going, hold on a minute. So, history, and this is what happens. Forget the whole COVID thing. All through history, there has been things that hit a society, and then during it, a populace thinks a certain way. After it's over, they look back at it and see through it. And, hindsight's 20/20. People see through all of it. But anyway, yeah.
And it's on a pod again to try that podcast. We recorded last night, and one of the topics that came up with a guest was he lost his position because he wouldn't take the vaccine because of his pre-existing health conditions, and they let him go.
Yep.
They fired him.
Yep.
And
I know people that were arrested because they didn't close their church down, and yet a strip club, a
those were essential.
a vape shop, the liquor store, Walmart, or whatever, it was all essential. Yeah. Isn't it interesting?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like on
I'll
some
tell you
of
what's
these.
most essential was not that stuff.
Well, my brother kind of took that fight up in Michigan, where if you remember, in that same year,
Mhm.
you weren't allowed to gather in movie theaters, and you had to close the movie theaters down. But it was okay to have a protest.
Of course.
Okay,
Of
there's
course.
a whole bunch of different hypocritical.
Of course.
I just saw it for what it was, and a lot of people got caught up in the hysteria of it. They bought into it. I said right from the get go, if the media would just shut up
If
about
the
it,
media would have shut up about it, it would
it
have
would
changed.
go away.
I actually do blame most ills all through history is the speaking of amplification, it's the media. It's like, and even the devil works this way. This is like an analogy. You're walking through an alleyway, right? Everybody can see it. Alleyway, New York City, let's just say, or some city. It's dark, Gotham, whatever. You're walking through. You drop your flashlight. It rolls underneath a big steel dumpster. It's shining out from under the dumpster, but it's too far and you can't get it. And now you're scared. Now you're hearing every sound. You don't know how to get back out because it's shining one way, but it's dark the other way now. All of a sudden, a curious mouse comes in front of the flashlight. Now he's a dragon on the wall, and you think you're going to die.
Yeah.
And it's true. You take something powerless, or you take things that are anemic, or you take things that are toothless. That's why Scripture says the enemy goes about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour, because he's always looking for a host to operate through. And, I just think that, the biggest thing is, Whose report will you believe? Who are you listening to? What are you watching? You better be around victorious, edifying, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. I used to, like, speaking of, we're still talking about that whole issue, but it used to amaze me. You'd see people come into a restaurant completely messed up. They'd sit down at the table, take it off, eat their food, stand up, put it on, go to the bathroom, sit down, take off the mask, because the virus knew that the second you sat down for a meal, that it was okay.
That's right.
It was very intelligent.
It was very intelligent.
I
Actually,
was
it
like-
actually waited
It's like,
outside.
take it off, put it down. I mean,
Yeah.
hold on. Yeah, take it off and then put it on, take it off, put it down. It waited outside. And you just kind of go, but it's fear. The fear. And that's just the thing that people are going to look at for decades to come and say, do you remember that whole time period? And they're going to do whole case studies on human nature, how people operated, why people behaved the way they did, all of the stuff that was true, wasn't true, everything's going to come out in the wash. And that's why, guys, you just have to just believe in you. We were talking earlier about entrepreneurialism and pursuing your passions, right? I would believe in you. That's the camera. Is that the camera looking at me?
Yes.
Is that the one?
That's one of them.
That's one of them?
Yeah.
I would believe in you far more than I would believe in a company, an institution, or someone to take care of you. There's more inside of you. You can change anything with a few. I heard a man took me in the car one day. We were driving to a meeting. He said, I need you to drive me to this event. So he's on his computer and I'm just driving all the way to this event. And he looks over at me and he says, no matter how advanced somebody's mess is, it doesn't take 5 to 10 interconnected, wise and smart decisions, and you'll get out of any problem in no time. A 40-year journey was an 11-day walk.
Yeah.
And I think we all are faced with that in life. I didn't have to, we don't have to go through this stuff. And then there's this whole group that says, well, you're supposed to go through that because after all, going through that is why it teaches you what happened. And if you didn't go that, you wouldn't be the person you are now. And I think fools sadly learn through experience, and wise people learn through the experience of others. I mean, the scripture says these things were written as an example, so you ought not do them.
Yeah.
I'd rather learn from your mistakes, Jim.
Yeah.
I don't want to make them.
Well, the harsh
Or you
truth
learn from
is, and a good friend of mine, he wrote a book called The Hard Way, Brad Lee. He and I go back and forth about this. I say, you do realize that even though if they take heed of what you went through and apply that in their lives, they're still going to learn a different kind of hard way.
It can't be replicated.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. There's a million nuances that made that what it was, and you
Right.
can never take that and then put it on that, and they could never follow it.
Well, what if I could just make you not repeat history? Guess what? You're going to do it anyway. We literally in 2020 repeated the history of the Great Spanish Flu of 1919.
Repeat.
Why did we do that? Because we don't know what intrinsically it felt like. We will never know what it was like for our grandparents to live through World War II.
No, we will not.
Never, ever know what that felt like. To not know for 4 years with a trailing news media in terms of getting up-to-date information to the masses. It was already weeks old at that point. For it to travel across and all that stuff, maybe by wire and teletype, things of that nature. There was some sort of immediacy, but you're still a couple days behind before it gets on a newspaper, gets into your, if you're even getting it delivered, to receive the information that's up to date. Germany or Japan could be attacking and you'd be blindsided. So they're living with that terror day in and day out. What's going to happen? Are we going to be speaking Japanese on the West Coast, German on the East Coast?
And those were real concerns.
They were valid concerns.
Well, and then even when Pearl Harbor happened, it couldn't possibly be an armada coming to us.
Can you imagine what it felt like for people to see the images for the first time? Because they didn't have television.
Now they're on top of you. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
We saw what happened with the World Trade Center in real time.
Yep.
You remember how that felt that day?
I
Looking at the buildings collapsing over and over again.
Of course, you know exactly where you were. I know exactly where I was, what I was eating, and what we were watching.
For me, we were behind. We were in Vegas, so we were on Pacific time. And my wife was in Connecticut getting ready for the wedding for us to get married. Well, my fiance at the time. And I woke up, worked out, did my thing, came back to the apartment, got my bowl of cereal, turned on CNBC like I normally did. And that's when I thought it was the Space Needle collapsing. I was like, what happened in Seattle? I had no idea. None. I witnessed the second building collapsing. That was when I got news of it.
Yeah, I went to pick up my friend. I was in my 1984 Lincoln Town Car, my white town car with blue leather interior. Picked him up because we were going to go to work. We were working in a financial services company. So I picked him up and said, we're heading, and we had a few minutes, and he had made some sausage biscuits. And
where were you?
I was in Pensacola.
Oh, so you were on
at the time.
East Coast time?
It was Central, Pensacola Central.
Was it Central?
Yeah, and walked in, was eating a sausage biscuit, had the TV on, and watching it. So, yeah.
You saw it in real time?
If that was real time. I'm sure it was delayed some, but yes.
Well, you're only an hour behind.
Yep.
You know, I think the first plane hit, almost 9 o'clock?
Yeah, it was early. We saw both.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some noise. Something just hit, and then they stood there and they watched, and then the whole city froze.
Yeah. I remember the night in Vegas where our apartment was, you could see the landing pattern of the planes coming into McCarran from where we lived. So I'd be able to go out on Sahara Avenue and stare down. You'd be able to see the pattern, and it was non-existent.
Non-existent.
Nothing in the air.
Everything stopped. Atlanta shut down, all of it.
Yep.
And yeah, you're right. I mean,
2 generations down, these guys will never know what it felt like.
Oh, they'll say the pandemic of what?
Right. No, I mean just 9/11 because
9/11. Forget it. Yeah.
Our parents didn't know what World War II was like. My mom was born in 1941. My dad in 1942. That was the beginning of the war, but they'll never remember. Yeah, they were too young.
That's correct. My mother
Isn't that
was
crazy?
43.
Yeah.
1943.
They'll never know.
Never know.
They know what Vietnam felt like, but I mean, Vietnam wasn't as tumultuous as World War II. It was a big deal because we shouldn't have been in Vietnam, and there was a huge body count. But, you know, I have that whole pendulum theory that goes back, the big skirmishes that happen every 80 years. But moving forward, encouraging people and lifting them up. I've been on a big kick like that, and I think there's a bubbling movement where people need to redefine what authenticity means because it's being thrown around a lot by inauthentic people. They're misinterpreting it as one thing, and it's not integrous. It's fake. Authenicity's got to come forward, especially in the case of transparency, of making it okay for people to say, I'm not okay. Mm-hmm. Even like, if you're familiar with the artist Jelly Roll, he's got one of his bigger songs that's right now is a hit is called "I'm Not Okay."
Just the statement is probably going, hold on a minute.
Right.
Yeah. He said it. He said the statement.
It's got to be okay to say that you're not okay.
And it's not who you are. You are not your we talked about this on the last podcast.
Right.
You're not your circumstances. What does circumstance mean? The circumference in which you stand.
Right.
There's a surrounding and you're in the midst of it. And somehow you look at your circumstances and then because it's so emotionally connected, you think it is you.
Yeah. It's
temporary. And so, yeah, I think just being authentic about I'm dealing with this, and you see it a lot with guys, men. This is a general, it's a generalism, but you could have like we go to these really fantastic car meets all the time, and we've got lots of friends that have incredible car collections, and there's all these folks from all these different genres come in, and I've seen it at any given time, and I've even had the conversations. Disaster happened. At home, they just had a blow-up fight. They're dealing with a crisis. Something's wrong with the parent. Something's happening. They're driving something that could be taken tomorrow. They're dealing with a personal health issue. They had a business partner betray them, whatever. But guys don't talk about it because they're too busy, making you think, look at my cool stuff. Everything is fine. I'm fine. And it is. And I'm not saying, let's have a men's accountability groups where all you want to do is talk about your problems. I mean, that becomes its own ridiculous thing that can get very unhealthy. But I'm just saying the fact that you could say, hey man, I had a business, made millions and millions of dollars. Everything went away, had to start over again. Why isn't it okay to say that? because you feel like you're going to be seen less than you are.
Well,
if you
it
share
comes
it.
down to one word: pride.
Right.
And as a man, you're not supposed to be able to admit that.
Yep.
Men aren't supposed to cry.
There's still a bit of that is still infused in thought. Yeah.
But I mean, there's
Feels good to cry. I cry often.
You gotta,
I cry often.
It's bottled up otherwise. It's got to come out somehow.
Most of my crying, thank goodness, is done in the mornings in my quiet time or when I'm reading. Because it's just an alone time, an intimate time, a quiet time I have in my Bible study, and you just get hit with these things in life, and you feel stuff getting pulled out and rearranged and adjusted, and you feel remorse, and you adjust your heart, and so that's a safe place. And then, if I have no problem with it. I have no problem. I'm sure I did years ago, but it is incredibly liberating to know that whatever somebody thinks of me.
Okay. I can't control that.
What a gift. My wife said an amazing quote. She goes, the day, and this isn't because either the Cobra head, I can't do the Cobra head, but the whole thing, and actually I can't really do that, but that whole, I don't care what anybody thinks about it. This is who I am, and you got to like me for who I am, and this is who I am. And people love to say that, but it's usually a lot of hurt, or I'm not going to change, or I'm afraid to change. So now I'm just going to make you accept it. Even if I'm not excellent, you have to accept my lack of excellence because this is who I am. That gets really, really ugly.
I don't care what you think of me, but you have to accept me for who I am, because I kind of do care what you think.
Right, because I actually really do, and I'm going to lose my mind if you don't say that you're okay with this present state.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Hey, but my wife said, she goes, the day that people's opinions no longer matter to you, that's the first day you begin to master your life.
Yeah.
And that is not that you don't take advice, not that you don't care about wisdom, but it's the fact that their opinions are not going to, their words are not going to break you. They're not going to define you. I mean, I know this. I had a perfect example. Let's talk about this. You guys will like this. And again, I hope this has been encouraging. But my mother, this is a perfect example. When I was a kid, and I shared this, I think, a little bit on the last podcast, my mother dealt with nervous breakdown. My father got catastrophically ill. We had a lot of stuff, a lot of loss, had a real chaotic life. It was really crazy. We had a 74 Buick Electra 225 in the driveway. Ran great, looked great. I still want one because they are cool. The Landau top was awesome. We also had a 71 Buick Skylark 350 4-bolt main station wagon. Pretty awesome. Anyway, that was my car moment. That's as far as I'll go. But anyway, so we had this Electra 225 in the driveway. Ran great, was perfect mechanical condition, giant 455 in it. Looked good, was responsible, cream with the brown leather, brown interior. In our driveway, dry rotting tires, that kind of moldy film that gets on the paint when something sits a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we would walk past it out of our house every day or every few days to go get in a taxi cab. Right? To go get in a taxi cab.
Yeah.
Taxi cab would come in Atlanta. I live on the north side of Atlanta. Come up the driveway, come up, honk the horn. We'd come out, walk past. Here's my mother and I walking past a perfectly good vehicle to get in a taxi cab. And in the 70s, we were spending $700 to $800 a month in taxi fares.
Wow.
And I always wondered, why are we walking past this car? It is because she was told by family and friends, you would never be a good driver. You will never be able to drive. And so she believed those words in her mind. And so even the very thing that would have given us our independence and given us a whole lot of our income back and been able to function, because back then that was a lot of money being blown off on Dixie Cab. Dixie Cab used to show up. And when you know all of the names of the entire cab drive, everybody in the entire place on a first name basis, that's a problem. But because she believed somebody else's words, we struggled profoundly because of it and didn't even use the very thing that was next to us. And I just want to tell you guys that are watching, whose words have stopped you? who said something over your life that defined who you think you are or what your limits are, go back, forgive them. Forgive them. Recognize that it's a lie. Doesn't matter how much it feels to be true or how much your life has kind of fulfilled that prophecy because you've believed it and walked it out. But in a moment, everything can change. What gets revealed gets healed. I love that statement. What God reveals, he heals. And so be willing to say, you know what? That person's statement, that situation, when they said that to me back then, that was the word. Or like, you will never be anything. You're a piece of trash. You know, people have their fathers say horrible things to them. Their mothers say horrible things to them. Their siblings say horrible things to them. And they take it to the bank. And people have their lives destroyed because of words. And yet, because of the right words, in a podcast like this, hearing this could be the very thing that cracks the dam and sheds light through it for the first time. And in no time flat, you can be free of that noise.
The only thing you're going to regret is the fact that you didn't do it sooner.
That's it. But then there's also grace because God is able, you can't redeem time. You can't get time back, but you can redeem the time. He's able to catch you up, and your latter rain is better than your first rain. And everything can change quickly, and you end up in a far greater place. People say, well, everything happens. I just believe that everything happens for a reason. I do not believe that. There's a reason everything happens, but not all things happen for a reason. You're not dealing with a cosmic puppet master that's pulling strings, and 1 minute he slaps you, and the next minute he gives you a cookie, and the next minute he lets you be bitten by a dog, and the next minute you lost this, the next minute this person died to teach you a lesson, this person can't, this one got it, you got the cookie, you got bitten. No. Things happen in life. You've got to be able to know where the lies are, where the untruths are. You have to be able to discern the difference, shut out the voices and the noise of what isn't, anchor onto the truth, and just realize that not all things happen for a reason, but there is a reason all things happen, and you can be free of that. That's a big one. That creates a fight in Nashville because you start crossing theological lines, and a lot of people in ministry are I've seen people in ministry that want to fight you because they've built their entire church mentality on stuff like that.
My brother is a big subject in terms of that. Several episodes ago, we had him on, and I looked forward to having him on for a long time. And we ended up finding out a lot about each other, me especially about him. All these misperceptions I've had throughout the years were just made completely bare to me. And it was very eye-opening.
After years of it not being clear.
Yeah. I mean, he and I, we're starting to really desire to have a relationship with one another at this stage in life. He was constantly trying to chase that image of what success looks like and things of that nature for a season of his life. But one of the things he revealed was he didn't pursue a career in music, which is something he's always wanted to do, because he heard our Father in his head saying, look, if you do that, you're going to have to sing. If you can't sing, you're not going to make this thing work. You got to be able to sing. So learn how to sing. And if you're going to do it, you're probably going to wind up as a garbage man.
Literally. That's
what he told him. And I was like, he told you that? I said, how come I never heard this? I was musically bent. I had a desire to be creative and stuff like that. It manifested in a different industry, in radio, because I just chalk it up to my own self-limiting beliefs, and I just didn't know how to pursue a career in music. I was kind of like, if it happens, great. If not, it'd be kind of cool. But I know that I was once I sat down in a production room in a radio station, I was like, this is me.
Oh,
I knew that.
This is my life.
This is me. I was 22, 23 years old. I knew it. I was a drummer. I still am. I enjoy it. I know people who do it professionally. I don't know if I'd want to live that life. It takes you got to have lightning in a bottle. But at a certain age of your life, yes, if that's something you want, go for it. Do it. If I were my parents telling him, dude, do it. Fall on your face in your 20s. That's the time to do it. But if you don't have it figured out by the time you're late 20s, 30s, maybe it's time to figure something else out, But you got to have something to fall back on. He wanted to major in music in college. What do you major in music for? You're going to be a garbage man. Major in business. My father literally did apologize to my brother at one point. But that, even after all of that,
Wow.
on his deathbed, quite honestly,
Mm-hmm.
even after all that, my brother still has that echo in his head. The guy's been gone for 18 years. Yeah, 18 years. And he's like, I still hear Dad. I said, you need to get past that. You know, dude, you're 53, 54 years old. I'm encouraging him to move down here. I'm like, do it. Just do it. You know, you have the leverage. You got a great career. You made yourself into an amazing attorney. Maybe it's run its course. You know,
Words.
it's still practical, but it's leverage at this point because you can make a hell of a good living and go kiss babies and shake hands at night and make your inroads into Nashville. I said, I've got people here that I know that I could connect you with, and at least you got something, you know, whatever that may look like. If you've always wanted to play an arena or go on tour, we could figure out a way to make it happen. It's probably not going to be ideal, but it could happen.
You know, the crazy thing is I think you're going to see a major wave of 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds shining at the peak of creativity, artistry, business, and everything else. And the world is longing for wisdom, experience, and a rooted life. And I think, well, they say statistically, between 70 and 80 is your most profitable time. Contrary to you're 40 years old now, go buy your casket. Between 70 and 80 is the most profitable time of life. Between 60 and 70 is the second most. Between 50 and 60 is the third. And everybody thinks that by the time they're 50, you know, there you go. That's the beginning of the demise. It's not. There should be and every age has its glory.
Yeah.
And every age has a more fantastic layer where people, I mean, you give me an older man, an older woman that have tremendous amounts of wisdom in life, that carry themselves strong, look sharp, and are killing it. It's so rare, so beautiful. Have you ever seen just a strong, solid, cool, cutting edge, put together guy and girl, and they could be like late 70s, 80? I mean, you're just
my in-laws.
Wow, who are you people?
Yeah, my in-laws are that.
Usually, I mean, it's one in a million.
Yeah.
But you're gonna so.
My mother-in-law has always been a very strong woman. My father-in-law was a very a good example of masculinity. That's how it should be. He is both of them together are like that, you know. And he's 81, she's 79.
It's like you go down to Palm Beach and you go to one of these estates that's generationally, and the father and the mother come out in the hat and the excellent clothes. Oh, we're so glad to see you. And they're strong and together and they're connected with everybody in the community and they're lovely and they're full of vitality. I mean, you're supposed to go from glory to glory, faith to faith, strength to strength. You're not supposed to demise. So I think if the society tells you at 40, this is who you are, what you're supposed to have, how you're supposed to operate, where your physical conditions are, and what you're gonna get, people will do it. At 50, you're at 50 years old. This is a 50-year-old problem. This is what 50-year-olds get. This is what 50-year-olds have. At 60, this is your 60-year-old problems. And so every age, the whole society programs that. So people go, oh gosh, I am X number of years old. This is my list. It's almost like going to the tab in the book, 61. Okay, at 61, I have these problems. My knee should be going bad at this point. Probably wearing got it. I'm 62 now. Oh, we got a whole new list. Those and some new ones. And this is the nonsense you have to turn off. I don't care. Here's another verse. Let every man be a liar and God be the truth. Doesn't matter what people say or what statistics. You can defy any statistic, any odd, any example. You can defy it.
I agree.
Yep.
Essentially what you said is that it's always something. It really is.
Well, and as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. You know, you if you believe that this is your lot in life, or this is who you are, or these are the things you're going to have. I mean, why do you think the drug companies pummel the airwaves with, are you a man of this particular, ethnic propensity between the ages of such and such and such and such? Well, you might have 8 out of 10 men have dun, 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 and they lay these things out, and people go, oh, maybe that's me,
Yeah.
while they're eating their popcorn watching the game.
Yeah.
It's money.
It's, but I say it's always something in a healthy way, because it is always something. And it's a matter of acknowledging that and just accepting it and being okay with it. Once I realized that in the car business, I think I told you this story before, and it was the premise of the previous podcast that I ran, the What's Your Problem podcast. Once you realize it's always something, just accept it. It's almost like a weight lifted off your shoulder, and take it in stride. Something's going to be, a challenge of some magnitude is going to be happening to you. And how you react to it is what makes your character.
Do you step on it? Do you step over it?
Right.
Or do you let it crush you and you have it roll over you?
And that's, a
Correct.
good, probably a thought to leave on with people listening that need to be encouraged is that, look, it's okay that it's always something. It's okay to be not okay. It's okay to talk about not being okay.
Let's
Talk about it.
That's the start.
Yeah.
Yep.
It needs to happen, because the more you bottle it up, it ain't going to be okay.
Well, and in your mind, you have this incredible, like I remember there were times during some of the stressful times in our life when I would just be in my head so heavily during the day. Holly would come up to me and go, hey babe, you haven't even talked to me today. I said, I have. I said, we've been talking all day. She goes, you haven't said 2 words. I'm like, seriously? I said, I feel like I've talked to the planet, but it's amazing how we're just swallowed up by all those introspective thoughts. And it's the healthiest thing you could do is go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. Find people that actually care. Be okay with sharing your story and where you're at, and just know. And then I'm going to tell you something. Be jealous. I mean, be a warrior about this. Find champions in life that are defying the odds, doing the impossible, and don't listen to anybody less than that. And that takes courage, because it forces you to look in the mirror. If you really want to get to X, Y, or Z, or have this X, Y, or Z, or accomplish X, Y, or Z, find the champions doing it and lock onto that. Don't listen to the armchair quarterbacks of life. They're everywhere.
Oh, they totally are. Something else has dawned on me too, that you said some of the more stressful times in life. What's funny is
it's all
that
perception too.
it really is.
Yeah, it was.
But it's also, rounds around the block in life, that what we consider not stressful now, at one point we considered to be very stressful. We're just used to it.
And you look back and go, man, do you remember how that just consumed me?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's my analogy, right? There was a whole training I did. And it's a whole coaching process, but I'll give you the basic premise. So you ever saw Honey, I Shrank the Kids?
Yeah.
All right. Kids shrunk. They're in the yard. They're only like 20 feet from the front door, Jim. But they're in the yard, and the grass blades are the size of trees. The ants are like gigantic elephants. And they don't know what's left, what's right. They don't know where the sidewalk is. I mean, a drop of rain or from something from the sprinkler happens, it almost swallows them up. The ants are, you can't even function.
Yeah.
If you climb up to the top of a blade of grass, you get a little bit better vantage point. You go a little bit higher and you even see better. You climb up to the top where one of those little wheat stalks are, right, that you see in yards, and you go, oh, there's the house, there's the sidewalk, there's the direction, there's this, there's that. It's all vantage point. The lower down you are in your perspective, the more bound you are and the more ominous it is. That is why edifying books, edifying tapes, edifying people, edifying environments, champions, winners, life crushers, that type of thing will help you get your vantage point higher. The scripture, get into a disciplined morning Bible study, period. Best advice. If I said nothing on this podcast, do that no matter what. Get your coffee, get up early, before everybody's even awake, sit quiet in a chair and read it. I don't know what to read. It doesn't make any sense to me. It will. And you get your vantage point higher, and suddenly you go, oh. And think about this, even like you've been on the tarmac, right? And the plane takes off, and then it goes up, and then suddenly, you're 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 5,000 feet, and you go, oh, there's the ocean, there's the mountains, there's this, and everything is easily navigatable. That's the point. The higher up you go, the clearer your vision. And so from the word and from the right people, environments, and champions that you feed from and listen to, that's going to give you the ability to conquer in life rather than being conquered by life.
Which is funny because it's not easy to get that kind of vantage point. Most people don't think. Because a plane has to take off into the wind. You have to climb up something. You have to defy gravity to some point. And
it requires the push throttle. You have to, there's another verse that says you have to strive to enter into rest.
Yeah.
It's the pressure of breaking the gravitational pull of life. And it's like the sound barrier, right? You have to have unbelievable amounts of propellant to get through the gravitational pull, and then it's almost effortless, and they can go psst, 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 and go around the earth. Same thing with the jets. You get past 750, 700 miles. I mean, things about to break apart at 749, at 750, right? Sonic boom, and then you're just, and it's like glass.
Yeah.
This is what happens if you believe, and I'll say this also, a lot of people don't believe that it's even possible, so they don't try. That's why a podcast like this, being shown that it is possible, that it is out there, may be the first time somebody actually hears it, and they're able to anchor onto that for the first time.
So when's your podcast coming out?
Okay. Let me tell you something. This has got me so jazzed up.
Good.
I want to encourage all of you, also with what Jim's doing is he's giving people a voice. And if you feel called to get your voice out there, it's not expensive to get a few microphones and put a curtain up and get some basic lighting. Get your voice out there.
Yeah.
So, get out there. I'm not so concerned with the name. What I started doing, per your advice, is because that's a realm I didn't really tackle. I did a lot of other stuff. And I told you behind the scenes, we were touching thousands of lives all the time, but it was never public.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's now. I mean, I have been more vocal in the last month than public vocal than I have been in, I know the kids will attest to this, in a long time.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that's
so thank you for the encouragement.
I know talent when I see it.
Oh.
So where can people find and follow you? You got your website up still?
Changing it up a bit. So it Gabriel Sedlak, Gabriel Sedlak. That's on YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah.
All of it. It's just Gabriel Sedlak, and love to connect at a personal level, a business level, life level, encouragement level.
Yeah. More people need to hear from you. I've always thought that, that if you're a podcaster and looking for a guest, reach out to Gabriel, reach out to me if you need a contact. I could certainly provide the introduction. As you can hear, amazing, always an amazing guest. That's why I keep having you back on. We have great conversations. And so with that being said, MMTBP.com, make sure that you go there and all that fun stuff. And look for that link if you want to be a part of the show, or somebody that needs to be a part of the show. Hit me up. Let me know. You can contact me through there. Of course, all the find and follow us and subscribe, share, rate, review. Everything is right there. Gabriel's always wonderful time with you.
Thank you, sir. So kind.